师帮我看一下这个有没有肉的？
不能帮你看，肉怎么帮你看？
看就行。
行。
Okay, so let us start today's session. Shall we start? Okay. So first of all, I want to answer some queries. There have been some questions which are asked by students, and because I was finding it difficult to answer them one by one, so I just want to answer them in the lecture, during the lecture. First of all, your marketing project is due on 26th of this month, which makes lesser than a week, right? So you have just 6 days remaining. So please start working. Secondly, you have to follow this pattern. Please, the pattern which is given to you, please follow this pattern. Okay? Do not skip any part, because this project is designed by keeping your syllabus in consideration. Whatever we have learned, everything is applied in this project. So please do not skip any part. Okay? Everything in this project has been discussed in the class, so you don't have to skip anything. So everything is basically discussed during the class. Another important thing, yes, pricing, about pricing. So I have received many queries about pricing, how to price. For instance, some groups, they have app, they have basically designed an app, and they want to price the app, and they don't have a clear idea about how to price the app, because they are providing a platform, a service, and they don't know how to put the price of that platform. So if you are designing an app, and that app is basically delivery service, then you can just look at the model of Make One. We discussed the Make One model, we discussed the Make One documentary in the class, and we discussed that Make One is just earning 4% profit margin from its food services, but it is earning 43% profit margin from its travel services. So you can, if you are offering a service, and if you are developing an app for your marketing project, just keep in mind that you have to take into consideration these two important points: the sales volume, the products which are sold through your apps and they have high sales volume. You can have no markups for those products. Okay? And if you are selling those products which have a low sales volume, you can have a high markup for those products. So you can, if you are developing an app, app, if you're developing an app app, you can price your app in such a way that the price reflects in the volume of the units which are being sold through that app. So any group which is developing an app, no group in this section. Yeah, you guys are developing an app. So what is your app all about?
About postgraduate service.
Yes, I remember. So you are providing them services for higher education, right?
Yes.
Okay. So how are you developing your pricing strategy?
For the person who is responsible.
Who is your pricing manager? Yeah.
I divide the service into different parts. One part is one-on-one course, and one part is online course, and we also will receive money from the membership and the
Exactly. This is a very good point, that you can offer membership and you can offer customized services. To special, special members. So you can designate VIP members, gold members, silver members, and provide them the most customized services. For instance, you can provide highly customized services to the VIP members, and lesser customized to the gold members, and then to the silver members. So you can make these categories. So if you are developing an app, you have to be slightly creative in pricing your services. Okay, and it also means that you have to follow service marketing mix, not product marketing mix. You have to do 7 P's, not 4 P's. Okay, you're doing 7 P's. Okay, another thing, another important thing, promotion. Please keep in mind that do not download a video from internet and turn it into your advertisement. Please be original. Okay, shoot your own advertisement. Okay, even if it is not of high quality, we are not looking for quality, we are not looking for professionalism. We are just looking for your effort, for your understanding, how you apply the concepts which we learn in the class. Okay, so even if your advertisement is not of very high, professional quality, don't worry about it. Okay, so we are not looking for, highly professionalized type of advertisements. So do not download from the internet. Make your original advertisements. Okay? And one thing which I have been asked repeatedly about the radio advertisement. So you can simply say that your consumers, they do not listen to the radio. So you think that radio advertisement is not justified. So just do not do it. So if you think that your consumers are not listening to the radio, okay, then do not put radio advertisement. For instance, you are targeting young students, okay, your group is targeting young students. So you think that students, they are not listening to the radio. How many of you listen to the radio? Nobody, right? Unless and until you are traveling in the cab and the driver has put on the radio, okay? Then you listen to the radio. That's it. So you can simply argue that my target market does not listen to the radio. So you don't have to put the radio advertisement. Okay? And these non-transit, the advertisement on the buildings, this is very common. Okay? Billboards are lesser common. Billboards are lesser common in China. But transit, the building advertisement, it is very, very common. So if you want to run an advertisement on any large building, okay, what kind of advertisement it would be? Okay, so if you want to create a print advertisement of your brand, a print advertisement is very important if you want to share that print advertisement on social media. Okay, this is very important. Even if you don't want to share it on newspapers, because print advertisement is usually considered very appropriate for newspapers. Okay, if your target market is not reading newspapers, you can still offer this print advertisement. You can still use this static banner, okay, in social media context. So please create this social media banner and this video advertisement. Other things may be exempted by giving a proper justification that our target market is not listening to the radio or not watching these building advertisements, these non-transit ads. Okay, one thing more. Yeah.
So how to submit this part?
This part is not. It cannot be incorporated in your report. So it will be shown to us during our presentation.
You do not need to submit it.
No. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, one more thing. So there was a requirement about cash flows and so outgoing and incoming cash flow. So incoming cash flow. So I have been asked by many students that what we need to include here. So the basic purpose of this exercise 4.4 is that you have been given a budget of 1 million RMB and you are supposed to run a business. Okay? So you are just supposed to make a 5-year cash flow statement. And you have been making these statements in your accounting and finance. So what you need to do here is that you need to make some approximate estimations. How much budget? For instance, you can divide. I don't know how to make cash flow statement, but I'm just assuming that cash flow statements have different parts. Okay, they're like financing activities, operating activities, investing activities, like this, right? It is like this, right? So you can divide that. How much of 1 million RMB investment you will invest in the first year, and how much recovery, how much incoming cash flow is expected, how much expenses will be incurred in the first year. Okay, so this is all, it is just part of your imagination and some groundwork, some research, some preliminary research. Okay, so we are not expecting you to come up with realistic figures, but it is very important for you to have some kind of estimation if you are going to run a business. You have to think for long time period. You just don't have to think about the current scenario. So that is why this is 5-year time period. Okay, because you are going to stay in the market for a long time period. Okay, this is the purpose of the company. Not, we just don't want to, stay for 1 year or for 1 month. Okay, it would be a huge loss. So that is why we have included this thing, so you can think more, realistically about your business, the prospects of your business. Okay. Anything else about research project, a marketing project which is not clear? Anything else? Everything is clear. Good. Okay, so let us. Okay, so about your remaining semester. This is the plan for your remaining semester. So we have just 2 weeks, no, 2 to 3 weeks remaining. Okay. So this will be your syllabus for the exam 2. Chapter 10, Chapter 11, Chapter 12, Chapter 14, and Chapter 15. This makes up just 5 chapters. Okay? Okay? So this, your exam 2 will basically cover these chapters. Your exam 2, the time is in front of you, 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Unfortunately, you could not get any better time because this hall, this large hall was available only at this time. The format of exam is very much similar to exam 1. There will be 20 marks MCQs and 15 marks for short questions. Okay? MCQs will be very conceptual, complicated and confusing, so you don't have to focus on memorization. You have to focus on understanding. So MCQs will basically test your concepts, the understanding of your concepts. Okay? So please focus on how you understand the concepts. No need to memorize. Just focus on understanding. Okay? And presentations. Okay, this is important. This is section 4, right? Section 4. Unfortunately, you have to give presentation. The first 3 groups have to give presentations on the day your exam will be conducted. Unfortunately, why? Because the other sections, they are basically 1 lecture behind because of the Labor Day holiday. So that is why they are basically, they will have the next lecture on 8 June. So that is why they are running 1 lecture behind. And unfortunately, you are very much on time. So we will finish this semester on 3rd June. Okay? So on 3rd June, our whole coursework, our whole requirements will be completed. So the first 3 groups will present on 1st June, and group number 4, 5, and 6, they will present on the 3rd June. And please remember that attendance is mandatory on presentation days. You can even score bonus points by asking some very pertinent questions to these groups who will stand here and deliver their presentations. If you ask some very pertinent questions and challenge them profoundly, challenge them in a great manner, then we will give you some bonus points. Okay? So please be present on these presentation days, 1st June and the 3rd June. So after 1st June, after your presentation, you will take some break of 1.5 hours, and then you will go straight to the exam center and we will check your we will evaluate your preparation for your exam. Okay? So you will get 1 hour and 45 minutes break on 1st June, on Children's Day. So we will make your Children's Day very memorable. Okay? Yeah.
Only the group 1, 2, 3, is this the order that we choose in the group chat?
Yeah, yes. Okay? The order you choose in the group chat. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so everything is clear? Any questions? Okay, so let's get back to the study. So we were discussing the distribution in B2B context. Did we finish this? Yeah, okay. So is it clear to you that what is the difference between retailers and wholesalers and distributors? The difference between a distributor, wholesaler and retailer. So is it clear to you? The difference. Remember that these differences are very much important because your MCQs will be very conceptual in nature. So it is very important that you understand the differences between these three. Especially the students with marketing major, who is only one student. Yeah, one student. I think you know the difference. Great. Would you like to share with us? Yeah, please. Okay. Anybody else who can explain the differences between these three? Distributors, wholesalers, and retailers.
the wholesalers, the retailers, they are in a small scale, we manage large manage items.
Okay.
Wholesalers manage the various items.
Okay. What about distributor? What is the difference between distributor and wholesaler? Let's focus on this. The difference between wholesaler and distributor. Okay, let's forget about retailer. What about wholesaler and distributor? What about the difference? Yeah. Ownership. Ownership. This is the similarity, right? One of the similarities between distributor and wholesaler is that both of distributors and wholesalers, they own the product. But remember that the ownership passes throughout the marketing channel. When producer sells the product to the distributor, the ownership transfers from producer to the distributor. When distributor sells the product to the industrial user or other marketing channel members, the ownership transfers from distributor to the other member. So, as the product moves from the marketing channel, from the producer to the other members, the ownership keeps on transferring. Only one member does not assume ownership, that is agent. Agent does not assume ownership. Okay, why? Because agent is working because of its expertise. Agent has an expertise to find out the buyers. Agent has an expertise because the producers, they are more well versed. They have the expertise in producing whatever they are producing. Okay, so they want to find their prospective buyers, the potential buyers. For that, they have to rely on the agents. Agents have the expertise to find out the buyers. Okay, so the main difference between distributors and wholesalers is that distributors are exclusive. They are exclusive to the producer. Okay, and wholesalers, they don't have to be exclusive. They can get the products from multiple producers. So distributors are exclusive. Okay, for instance, the distributors of Toyota, we discussed, they are totally, we call them dealers. They are exclusive. They will not sell cars of any other brand. They will only sell the cars of Toyota. Okay, so distributors are exclusive. So they can sell all kinds of products of a single producer. So multiple products of a single producer can be sold by the distributor. But one thing is that distributor is exclusive to a producer. Wholesaler does not have to be exclusive. Second thing, distributor and and wholesaler, they work in different contexts. Wholesaler is basically working in B2C context, and distributor is working in B2B context. Okay? So wholesaler is part of that supply chain where the end user is traditionally a consumer, you guys. Okay? But distributor is working in that marketing channel where the end user is also an industrial user. So in a transaction, in an exchange between businesses, distributors are involved. And in exchange between consumers and businesses, wholesalers are involved. Okay, so you are clear about the difference between wholesalers and retailers. We don't need to go and repeat that thing. Okay, so this is clear. Okay. Internet marketing channels. Let us discuss internet marketing channels. Okay, so when we talk about internet marketing channels, there are two marketing channels which are used in online media. Okay, so the first channel is the company's own website. Okay, so company's own website, this is the first channel. Okay, you are selling through your own website. On the other hand, the second channel is third parties platform. So the third party platform is basically these huge platforms like Amazon, okay, like Alibaba, like Taobao. Okay, so like Taobao has sales to today, like 520. How was your 520? Good or bad? Or alone? Alone. Your 520 was alone. Okay. No problem. So third parties platform, it includes Amazon, it includes Taobao, it includes Alibaba. So when you are using internet marketing channels, you are using two mediums, own website and third parties platform. So when we talk about company's own website, basically the loyal consumers are buying through that. Loyal consumers. Why? Because they don't need to compare. But on the other hand, the third party platform, it basically provides the benefit of comparison. So you can compare, within a few clicks you can compare that this product is being sold by different manufacturers, different sellers. So you can compare in the third party platform. The comparison is made easier on the third party platform. But here, if you are an extremely loyal consumer, you don't need comparison. You just want one brand. So mostly you buy through company's own website through these channels. But because the third party platforms, they are extremely efficient. They are very efficient. So many loyal consumers also buy from these channels, the third party platform. But the main purpose the third party platform provides is the comparison. You can compare between different sellers, among different sellers, and they are very, very efficient. Companies own website, because they do not have a high traffic. Many consumers won't prefer companies own website, and the volume of sales is not that much in the company's own website. So many companies, they make their own stores on these third party platforms. Okay, Apple has a store, Nike has a store, all these brands have a store on these third-party platforms, and then consumers believe that they are basically buying from the manufacturer themselves. So this can also be used. Okay, another thing, direct marketing. Now this is something which is different from direct channel. Direct marketing and direct channel are two different concepts. You need to understand that. Direct marketing is not very relevant or not very, let's say, contemporary concept. Why? Because this concept is losing its relevance these days. Now I will explain you the concept and then you can decide yourself that whether it is still relevant or not. So all the sales which are made through telemarketing, through telephones, calls, all the sales which are made through television, all the sales which are made through catalogs, they are called as direct marketing. Now, these are not very relevant. Why these are not very relevant? Let's take the example of China. So, do you know the internet penetration of China? How much percentage of population in China have access to internet? It is like roughly 2/3, like 67%. 67% population of China, they have access to internet. But there is still 1/3 population which do not have access to internet. Okay? So for that population, maybe this can be a very good source. Television. Do you guys watch TV? No. Do you guys watch TV? Never, right? Never watch TV. So do you think that television is becoming an obsolete or irrelevant product? Do you guys have TV in your homes? So who watch it? Your mother, your father, your mama, papa, your grandparents, they watch. Your grandparents watch. Okay. So if you have to watch TV, where do you watch? You can watch it on your mobile phone, right? Okay, so that is why I said that direct marketing, it is making sales to television. You know, there is an advertisement on television that if you call at this number right now, you will get this much discount. Okay, so people start calling and buying and they get discount. But this method is not very much contemporary in those regions where internet penetration is very high, because people do not watch TV. Okay, they are watching everything on social media. Okay, so that is why this concept is getting, obsolete. It is getting old. Selling through catalogs. Do you know catalogs? What is catalog? Catalog. See, it is not very contemporary concept. Catalog is basically, for instance, have you visited IKEA? IKEA. Oh, what do you say? How do you say it in Chinese? IKEA. 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 Let's call it IKEA. Okay. Let's call it IKEA. Okay. So IKEA basically, it has it was very popular through by making sales through catalogs. So all the products of IKEA were basically, they were photographed and they were basically binded in the form of a book, and consumers can basically buy that book or get that book in the form of sales promotion, and they can basically flip and they can watch and then they can call and they can buy the products through their catalog. Okay, but now these catalogs are shifting to companies' own websites. So you don't have to buy through catalogs. You don't have to order through catalogs. You can order the products through company's own website. Okay? So this concept is losing its relevance these days, but still, you know that 67% of population has internet access, but there is 1/3 population which does not have internet access. In many countries, this is reverse. Okay? In many developing countries, it is 1/3 of population which has internet access, and 2/3 population do not have internet access. Okay? So maybe in those populations, these concepts are still relevant. Okay? And multi-channel marketing. Now we have to understand this concept, because multi-channel marketing and one very relevant concept, dual distribution, they are relevant. So let us compare multi-channel and dual distribution. Okay. So let us try to understand, because we are going to discuss dual distribution in the coming slide. Okay. So multi-channel marketing and dual distribution, what is the difference between them? Let us try to understand. In dual distribution, it is very simple. A company is distributing through direct channel as well as indirect channel. And when we talk about indirect channel, a company is only interested in selling it through reseller, only one kind of reseller or limited kinds of resellers. So this is the concept which we have discussed earlier as well. A company using direct distribution and indirect distribution. But when they use indirect distribution, they are using only one kind of reseller. And you will now understand why am I using the word one kind of reseller. When we talk about multi-channel, it is same in this sense that the company is also using direct and indirect channels. Okay? So at this level, both the concepts are similar. Okay, they are conceptually similar at this level. But if we delve deeper into these concepts, okay, in multi-channel marketing, company is using different forms of resellers, different forms of resellers. Okay, let us take the example of, let's say, Levi's. So you must have a different name for it, right? Let's call it Levi's. Okay, Levi's. Its complete name is Levi's Strauss. So you know this brand. Okay. So Levi's. So what is your perception of this brand? Is it a expensive brand, middle level brand, or inexpensive brand? Middle. It is middle level brand. Okay. It's good of you that you have said middle level because I'm wearing Levi's trousers. Okay, that's good. Okay. So it's a middle level brand. But Levi's have some products which are sold in some upscale stores, like stores like Neiman Marcus. Expensive. Okay, upscale stores. It has some products being sold through upscale, expensive stores. It has also some products sold through departmental stores. Now, departmental stores are those stores which can have both middle level and expensive products. Okay, so it is also being sold through departments like Sears. It is also being sold through some discount stores, some low price stores like Walmart. So let's see, it is a middle level brand. It is not a very expensive brand, it is not a very inexpensive brand, it is a middle level brand, but some of its products are sold in the upscale retails. Some of its products are sold through departmental stores, which can be called as middle level stores. Some of its products, or majority of its products, are sold in the discount stores, okay, like Walmart. Now, this is multi-channel marketing, and it is also selling in the online medium as well. Okay, it is also selling through some digital platform as well. Like it is also using internet marketing channels. It is also using indirect marketing channels. And indirect, it is using different forms of channels. But in dual distribution, it is limited concept. Okay, it is not broad like multi-channel marketing. So we discussed in the beginning, like Apple. Apple is using different kinds of, retailers. Like it is selling its products through cellular networks, like China Mobile, China Unicom stores. It is selling its product through retail stores. It is selling its product through, wholesalers. Apple is using multi-channel marketing. Apple is also using its own website to sell the products. Apple is also using third-party platforms like Amazon, like Alibaba, like Taobao to sell its products. So Apple is using multi-channel marketing. Similarly, Nike is also using multi-channel marketing. Okay, but there are some brands which are limited. They don't use multi-channel marketing. They use just one form of indirect distribution. That is, they don't sell through so many different stores. They sell through a single type of reseller. Okay, so that is called as dual distribution. So when a company is using direct and indirect marketing channels, but their indirect marketing channels, they have so many different formats. It is called as multi-channel marketing. But if indirect marketing channels are limited, they are not in so many different types, not so many different formats, and it is called as dual distribution. But remember that this multi-channel strategy is used for those products which have a huge demand. Okay, because you cannot be selling your product if it does not have a huge demand through different, formats, through different retails. Like this product has a huge demand. Okay, so that is why it is using different channels to reach the customers, because they want to reach the customers through upscale stores, through mid-scale stores, or through discount stores. So they just want to reach the customers. That's it. So they are making their accessibility very much convenient. Okay. Secondly, secondly is, you don't have to discuss this, but okay. So sometimes even these two channels, they basically complement each other. For instance, you buy something from online store and you don't like it. Okay, you have purchased a trouser and the trouser is, let's say, it is short or it is tight. Or you have put on some weight like me, okay, and it is a bit tight. So you can go to these indirect stores and you can exchange. Okay, so these companies, they also provide you with this option that you can get this change from the physical stores. So both direct and indirect channels, they are complementing each other. They are making each other better. Okay. Any questions? No? Are you guys sleepy? So, have you chosen any class at 7 p.m. in your next semester? No? Summer semester. You have chosen 7 p.m. class. The registration has not opened yet. It has opened, right? It is opening. Okay. So please do not choose 7 p.m. class. Okay? You guys become very sleepy. Okay. Okay, so let us discuss strategic channel alliances. Strategic channel alliances. So the word is strategic channel alliances. So let's call it SCA. Okay. The word is pretty difficult, but it has a very simplified meaning. Okay, strategic channel alliances. So what does this mean? So this means one company is using the channel of another company to sell its products. Okay, so let us try to understand how does it happen. So there is a company A and there is a company B, and company B is selling to the consumers. Okay, but company A uses the channel which company B uses to reach the consumer. How does it happen? It is very simple. Have you heard about Barnes and Noble? Barnes and Noble? No. Have you heard about Amazon? Okay, so Barnes and Noble and Amazon, they were competitors. They were like the largest book store chains. But Amazon, they realized that it is time to go online. So they went online and they became famous, and they kept on, expanding from online books, outlet to becoming an online, e-commerce platform. So they keep on expanding. But these gentlemen, they were late. Okay, they were not able to expand, and they were not able to make timely decisions to go online. Okay, so they eventually they have become online. store, but still they are lagging behind Amazon in a great way. Okay, to cut story short, Barnes and Noble still have a physical presence. They still have a physical presence. Now, this is a very interesting, cooperation. It's a very interesting alliance between Barnes and Noble and Starbucks. So in this alliance, Barnes and Noble can use the facility of Starbucks, or Starbucks can use the facility of Barnes and Noble. Okay, for instance, let's say that company A is Starbucks, and company B is Barnes and Noble. So Barnes and Noble has a bookstore, and in that bookstore, there are lots of books, hundreds and thousands of books are there. Okay, and still Starbucks is using that channel. Starbucks has its own coffee, allocated physical presence in that store. So consumers can go there, they can enjoy coffee and read the books. Okay, and some consumers like you and me, they will just go ahead and get coffee, and there is no need to read the book, right? So consumers can go there, they can enjoy coffee and read the book. So it is basically they are basically one company using the channel of another company, and they are what they are getting? They are getting two kinds of advantages: economies of scale and economies of scope. So what is the difference between them? Economies of scale and economies of scope. I think you have learned this concept, right? You have learned this in which subject? Economics. Yeah, economics. Economies of scale and economies of scope. What is the concept? You have not learned. You have learned? No? Okay. Okay. Shall I wait for you to answer? Or no? No. Okay. Wa Dang Niemann. And Niemann Dang Wa. We are waiting for each other. Okay, no answer. Okay, let us try to understand it in a very simplified manner. So when we talk about economies of scale, it is like when the sales are increased, the cost per unit, it is decreased. So when sales are increased, the cost per unit are decreased. This is called as economies of scale. So as company sales keep on increasing, the cost per unit, it keeps on falling. This is called as economies of scale. So that is why those companies which have high sales volume, they have cost advantage. They can produce the products at low cost. So this is a very simple concept. As the number of units sold increases, the additional cost per unit, it keeps on falling. Okay, so this is called as economies of scale. And economies of scope is a concept which tells you that, let me give you an example. So when you go to the McDonald's, so McDonald's has 3 different kinds of products. 3. No, okay, let's say 3. It is offering you McFlurry, ice cream, as ice cream dessert. It is offering you McCafe, hot and cold beverages, and it is offering you fast food. 3 different kind of beverages, 3 different kind of offerings are there. So they are offering all of these things in a single location. When they offer this, all these three things in a single location, this is called as economies of scope. Why? Because the individual cost of selling them separately, it is high, and collective cost of selling them at a single location, it is less. So collective cost is less. So this is called as economies of scope. So you have got a facility. So you can better use the facility by offering multiple services. Like McDonald's is using one facility to offer 3 different kinds of services: dessert, beverages, and food. This is called as economies of scope. This is saving them overhead cost. This is saving them lots of employee cost. human resource costs. Many costs are being saved by using economies of scope. Okay, so just imagine if they have a separate, outlet for McCafe. They have separate outlet for McCafe. I think they have many separate outlets for McCafe. But if they keep on doing so that only one facility is offering fast food and no ice creams or desserts, for that there is another facility. For beverages there is another facility. This will not let them enjoy the economies of scope. Okay, so that is why many companies, they enjoy economies of scope when they become large. Like Amazon is enjoying economies of scope. Okay, it is not only an online bookstore now, it has become an e-commerce giant. Okay, so economies of scope is that when you are using one facility and you are providing them multiple services, you are using it for multiple services, multiple productions. This is called as economies of scope. Clear? So strategic channel alliance provides companies with economies of scale and economies of scope. Economies of scope because one facility is being used by two different channel members to sell their products. And economies of scale because the overall sales might be increased because if there are two different kinds of customers going. Okay? So might be there will be increase of sales. So I think this concept is more applicable here as compared to this. This can also be applied, but this is more relevant. Okay. Any questions? Is the difference between dual distribution and multi-channel clear? Clear? Or not clear? Not clear? Clear? Okay, let us watch this documentary and then we will discuss it again. Okay, so what is your perception of this? So what is the first word that comes to your mind when you look at this? Hungry. Awful. Awful. Okay. Any other word? No. So basically, they are marketing themselves as a healthy brand, and none of you thinks that it is healthy. Okay. So let's watch this documentary. The documentary is called as The Rise and Fall of Subway. So Subway is falling. So let's have this documentary.
More than 42,000 restaurants in over 100 countries, Subway has the most locations of any fast food chain on the planet.
Okay, 42,000 restaurants, more than any other company. So just focus on this.
That sounds like a sign of a thriving subgiant. However, Subway is anything but. Subway's closed thousands of stores in the last 3 years and saw a 25% fall in business from 2012 to 2017. So what happened? The chain began as Pete's Super Submarines in Bridgeport, Connecticut in 1965. 3 years later, co-founders Fred DeLuca and Peter Buck rebranded it to simply Subway.
Subway's famous giant foot-long sandwiches right before your eyes, the way you want them.
What was so compelling then, and still is today about Subway, is really an open kitchen format. In many ways, they really pioneered that and the ability to customize your sandwich.
The brand redefined fast food with fresh ingredients that customers could see. Compared to other fast food chains at the time, it felt healthy. And it worked. By 1981, there were 200 locations across the U.S. And soon after, Subway went international.
In the late 70s and in the 80s and the 90s, everyone knew about Subway. I mean, they were everywhere, they're still everywhere.
That's Joel Lababa, an expert in franchising. While each store looks and smells the same, they're all independently owned franchises.
The format is pretty simple. You buy a franchise, you get trained, they help you secure a location, they help with a grand opening, and you're open. You're open for business. Follow the several 100-page operating manual, do the advertising, and customers will come in.
So we discussed this in case of Luckin Coffee as well. Remember, Luckin Coffee, after the scandal, they are going they are adopting this franchise model, and their franchising fee is very, very less. Okay, what was the fee? It was like close to $250,000, 250,000 RMB. That's it. Okay, so even you can have this franchise within your marketing project budget. So in that case, it is very, very simple that when a company wants to expand aggressively, they make barriers to entry very low. They reduce the barriers. Okay, Subway did the same. It was very easy to own a Subway franchise. You could see that the cost of Subway franchise was very, very less as compared to other fast food retail, chains. Similarly, Luckin Coffee, they are doing the same. Do you know what I am talking about? Luckin Coffee. You have a different term for it, like Luckin Coffee. Luckin Coffee, okay? So they are doing the same because they were suffering low sales because of that huge corporate scandal. Now they are going aggressively. They want to grow. They want to retain the position. Because 1 year or 2 years ago, they were pushed against Starbucks. They were competing. Everybody was betting on them to overthrow Starbucks and become the most, the highest, have the highest market share in the Chinese market. But eventually, it did not happen because they were stuck in a huge corporate scandal. Okay, but what goes here? What wrong did they go? Let's see.
Subway franchise is successful. They were and still are one of the cheapest chains to franchise. It costs between $116,000 and $263,000 to open a Subway franchise. Compare that to opening a McDonald's, which costs up to $2.2 million.
So the barriers to entry are very, very low. Okay, so anybody who has this much amount, they can own a Subway franchise. Okay, so do you think that the Subway right here in our university, is it expensive or cheap? Expensive. Okay, now you are speaking. Okay, this looks like your, inner voice. It is expensive, but see, it is all over the world. It is not that expensive. See, the investment to acquire Subway franchise is not that much. Okay, and similarly, the products are not that expensive. Why do you think that they are charging so much here? Do you think that Subway has a high prestige image here in China? It has a high value image, upscale image in China? No, it does not have upscale image. So why do you think that the Subway in our school, they are charging you so much? For a simple meal, you are being charged 40 RMB, 30 RMB. Any idea? Yeah. Monopoly. Monopoly. Yeah, that's good. That's good answer. Monopoly. Which is the nearest fast food chain here? How far is it? Few kilometers at least. You cannot walk. You have to hire Didi to go there, right? Or you have to take your electric bike to go there. So that's a very good answer. They are basically enjoying the monopoly. Monopoly means that they don't have any competition here. The best competition they have is your cafeteria.
No, there's another sandwich shop in called
Sawana.
I don't know the name in English, but it's in general education.
Is it offering the same kind of food?
Yeah, the sandwich. Exactly the same.
Exactly the same. Did you guys know about that shop? Did you guys go to that shop? Did you guys go to Subway? Okay, so what is the difference in prices there? Is it expensive or cheap or the same price?
It's a little bit.
Little bit cheaper. Okay. Still, you guys have got a superior image of Subway and you believe that it is worth the value. So you're going to spend extra bucks, extra RMBs for the Subway. Okay? Even when you know that there is a brand there. So this is a very, very difficult thing because when there is an international brand, then you associate some kind of, image with it. So that is why you are willing to pay so much high for this brand. But you will see that how marketing channels, they affect the way a business is conducted. You will see now.
Because Subways were easy to open, the number of stores skyrocketed. Between 1990 and 1998, store locations rose from 5,000 to 13,200. And in that same period of time, gross sales rose by about $2.1 billion. Subway's success continued into the early 2000s. At a time when obesity was rising rapidly in America, Subway continued to market itself as a healthy alternative to fast food.
One of their biggest successes for sure was the Jared Fogle story. Everyone remembers those ads where it's him in those huge pants where he's showing how he lost all of this weight. And that just made them
So this is what we call as opinion leader, influencer. They show an ad that there was a guy and he started eating Subway and he became smart and he was showing huge pants that he used to wear before, patronizing Subway, before eating Subway, and that become a huge success story. Okay, this might not work now. Okay, it worked in 1990s, but it might not work now. Okay, so if you are thinking of creating an ad on this ground, please do not. Okay, it might not work now.
really made people think about Subway as a really great health brand. It was one of the biggest advertising wins that any chains had in recent decades. So that was a huge, huge part of their brand.
Subway carried Fogle's success story for nearly a decade. But by 2008, the world was suffering from the effects of the Great Recession. And for many Americans, hunting for deals replaced the obsession with weight loss. So Subway changed up its message. In March 2008, it introduced a new promotion that would come to define the chain.
$5 foot long, so that means around 30 RMB, and you get half of it here at the same amount, right?
By August 2009, as other restaurant chains were struggling through the recession, the $5 footlong had pulled in $3.8 billion in sales for Subway, a 17% jump in U.S. sales from the year before. But even the best deals run their course. Starting in 2014, Subway sales began steadily dropping. Behind the scenes, many of the reasons for Subway's success had turned on them. Quiznos was once Subway's main competition, but tons of subchains like Jimmy John's, Firehouse, Potbelly, and Jersey Mike's, and fast casual chains like Panera were offering seemingly fresher and healthier options, and they started stealing market share.
They're competing against people who bring in fresh produce every day. A lot of Subway locations only bring in fresh produce once or twice a week.
On top of that, fast food chains that had been around as long as Subway were coming up with healthy alternatives of their own and getting creative with new menus.
More and more fast food chains really want to have that innovation pipeline where they're bringing something out new almost every month. Fast food places are looking for ways to bring in new customers, drive traffic, and Subway has not tried to do that in the same way other places have.
But other fast food chains weren't the only competition for Subway franchises. With Subway's franchising model making it so easy to open locations, stores inevitably started opening up around the corner from each other in lucrative markets. Take downtown Manhattan, for example. Within a 15-minute walk and less than half a square mile, there are 10 Subway locations. And these locations in close proximity began cannibalizing each other's sales.
The Subway franchise agreement, the contract, it says it can open anywhere. There is no protected territory. So franchisees
So
really
usually when you are franchising, there is a very important part of the contract that the franchisor, the owner, give franchisee some kind of geographical, rights that no other company, no other franchisee, no other outlet can open within that, area. Okay, so for instance, many franchises, like even the Dunkin' Coffee, they have this, kind of agreement that if your outlet is within 3 kilometers or 2 kilometers of that outlet, the other franchisee cannot open to that proximity. So geographical proximity is, the right of geographical proximity is given to the franchisee. So franchisee has this right that all the customers within that specific area, they are, coming to that particular outlet. And one outlet of the same franchisor is not competing with the other outlet of the same franchisor. Okay, so this is the right given. But Subway, because it was growing so aggressively, and the franchisor itself becomes, very much eager in earning the profits, that it did not keep this agreement condition when it was making agreements with the franchisee. So what happened? One franchisee was eating into the market share of another franchisee. So what we call it, we have discussed it, it is called as cannibalization. So when two stores are so much near to each other that they can eat each other's market share, this is called as cannibalization, and this can be problematic.
So if where the other franchisees are gonna, it's a problem.
And Subway Corporate wasn't stopping it because the company benefited from a high number of locations. More locations meant more franchising fees and high royalties to Subway Corporate, which diminished the effect of falling sales from a single location.
When franchisee sales are kind of slipping, as long as they're staying open, it doesn't necessarily hurt Subway as much as it would some other chains. If everyone's kind of like chugging along, like opening new locations, then they can kind of keep on keeping on, and it's not going to be the end of the world for the corporate office.
Franchise owners, on the other hand, took the hit. In 2012, each Subway franchise generated an average of $482,000 a year. 4 years later, that number had slipped to $422,000 a year. For comparison, the average annual revenue of a McDonald's franchise in 2016 was $2.6 million. And to make matters worse, Subway would lose the face of its company. In 2015, the man who had embodied Subway's Eat Fresh mission was charged with possession of child pornography and having sex with minors. Subway cut ties with Fogle, and he was sentenced to 15.5 years in federal prison.
And the Jared Fogle thing kind of basically went from a huge positive to a huge liability, like the worst things possible that your brand may be associated with.
All of these things created the perfect storm for Subway, and soon locations started to close. In 2016, Subway closed 359 stores in the US. It was the first year the chain closed more locations than it opened. In 2017, that number was over 800.
Basically, these are franchises opting out of Subway. They don't, because they believe that Subway is no longer profitable. Okay, so they just start opting out of the franchisor agreement. Okay, so this was a huge loss, and the main reason was cannibalization. There were other reasons that there were other competitors which were better competitors, and they were the regular fast food companies. They were also selling, fresh, menu, okay, healthy menu.
In 2018, over 1,000 locations had closed. With all these sour ingredients, it's hard to imagine Subway can bounce back. But the chain is certainly trying. In 2017, Subway launched its Fresh Forward program, starting with remodeled stores. The revamped locations featured new menu boards, Wi-Fi, USB ports, updated furniture, and music.
I will give Subway credit. They're doing something interesting. They're offering grants where if a franchisee applies and everything's in line, they can get up to $10,000 towards remodel.
By the end of 2020, over 10,000 locations will have this new restaurant design. But Subway says food is its next priority, and it's backing it up with an $80 million investment in updated menu items. Subway's partnered with the media company Tastemade to develop hundreds of new menu ideas, like the Green Goddess Tuna Melt and the Southern Style French Dip. In 2018, the chain introduced its cheesy garlic bread, its most successful promotion in the last 5 years. And in 2019, a line of
What
ciabatta.
about this Subway outlet? Do they innovate, or are you having the same menu for last 2 years? They don't innovate, I think so. The only innovation which I have seen is the ice cream, which they have introduced, which is also very, very expensive.
When top milkshakes hit stores.
Historically, Subway would evaluate about 6 or 7 new menu items per month. But we've set up a process and invested in capabilities where we're literally testing and least 100 new menu items every month.
As for whether or not all these menu items and revamped designs will stop shuttering stores and dropping business, only time will tell.
They need to figure out who they want their customer to be. I think it's really an uphill battle for them, but if they kind of go back to basics, think about what people want, ask people what they want, and think about a little bit more innovation, that's kind of going to be a good start for them.
Okay. So one thing which is clear from this documentary is that marketing channels, they play a very important role in the whole, activity. So you are not clear about dual distribution and multi-channel marketing. Let me try to simplify it. In dual distribution, the resellers are of a singular format. They are not of multiple formats. Okay? In multi-channel marketing, the indirect sellers, the resellers, they have different formats. Okay? But in dual distribution, the format is not that different. Okay? So it means that dual distribution, the direct channels of dual distribution and direct channels of multi-channel marketing, they are similar. But the difference lies in their indirect channels. In dual distribution, the indirect channel is very limited. Okay? There is a reseller and they try to maintain it limited. Okay? But in the multi-channel marketing, the indirect channel is of where they have different formats. Okay, they can have upscale, indirect channel. They can have mid-scale multi-channel. They can have a discount multi-channel, marketing. So it means that the multi-channel marketing is adopting various formats when using indirect channel. But dual distributions have limited options when they are using indirect channels. Make sense? Clear? How much clear? 80% clear? 50%. 50% is not passed, right? Okay. Are you clear? 80%? Excuse me? Hello? Are you clear? 90%? Okay. A minus is okay. So you can, okay. Okay. So let us discuss one more concept and then we will finish our today's lecture. Okay. The concept here is vertical marketing system. How much? 65%? 70%? 65. That is D grade. Okay, okay. D is okay. So you don't have to take the course again. Okay, so vertical marketing system. What is vertical marketing system? Slightly complicated concept. Let us try to simplify it. Because only we have one marketing major student here. And you will be learning this subject in detail in the coming semesters. This would be like logistics management or supply chain management. Okay, you will be learning these things in detail. Do you find it interesting? No? Doesn't seem so. Okay, so when we talk about vertical marketing system, we have three different kinds of vertical marketing system. What is vertical marketing system? Vertical marketing system means that how different channel members they coordinate with each other. Okay, how they cooperate with each other. Remember, we make a distinction between supply chain and marketing channel. Remember, what is the difference between supply chain and marketing channels? Anybody would like to? Yeah.
So marketing channels always talk about how producers transport products into the seller, buyers, consumers. And supply chain also have included how that's produced.
Exactly, very good. So basically, supply chain include the sourcing of raw materials as well. How the raw materials were obtained, how the raw materials were they were transferred to the producer's factory, and how they were transformed to the finished good. The marketing channel only discusses about how this finished good, which is produced here, that reaches the consumer. How this finished good reaches the consumer. The marketing channels are only interested in that. So when we talk about vertical marketing system, we are basically discussing this kind of here. We are discussing this basically this part of the supply chain. We are not discussing this part of supply chain at the moment. We will discuss them later, okay? But we are only focusing on how the finished good reaches the consumer. So we have different kinds of vertical marketing system. So vertical marketing system means that how these channel members, they cooperate with each other, how they coordinate with each other, okay? So there are 3 different ways. The first method is corporate vertical marketing system. Corporate vertical marketing system. So we basically denote vertical marketing system as VMS, okay? VMS. So what is corporate vertical marketing system? It means that all the activities of the marketing channels, they are owned by a single corporation. Okay, now this is a very, very important concept to understand, that all the activities, all the functions of the marketing channels are performed by a single company. So the producer is also responsible for delivering the finished good to the consumer. This is called as corporate vertical marketing system. So when the producer is also responsible for delivering the finished good to the consumer, it is called as corporate vertical marketing system. Okay? There are some companies which are not relying on these intermediaries. Okay? They are basically trying to reach the customers. They are not involving any other intermediary. They are not involving any other marketing channel member. And they are trying to reach the consumers through themselves, through their own stores, through their own, online retail platforms. So it means that they are owning the whole marketing channel. They are not relying on any other member or any other entity to do work for them. Okay, so this is called as corporate vertical marketing system. Do you have any example? Any company which is doing it? No example? Do you get the meaning of, no, KFC is not corporate vertical marketing system because it is relying on franchising. Yeah. So the franchising is basically contractual vertical marketing system, which we will discuss later. Okay? So corporate vertical marketing system, why companies do it? Because they want to maintain control. Okay? The first thing they want to do is that they want to maintain the control over whole supply chain, whole marketing channel, not supply chain, because supply chain includes this thing. Okay, so they want to maintain control over whole marketing channel. Why? Because they believe that if the control is not there, the quality might be compromised. Okay, there are some brands. Do you know this brand? Ralph Lauren. Ralph Lauren. Okay, yeah. Do you know this brand? Yeah. Right? This brand is using corporate vertical marketing systems. Why? Because this brand believes that it can reach the consumers directly and it will basically, give the perception of that exclusivity, that upscale image which this brand possesses. This is a clothing brand, Apple brand. Okay, you can check. What do you call it in Chinese? What do you call it in Chinese? Love? Oh, yeah, now you got it, okay? So you know this brand, right? Good. Okay, so now we will discuss the second one, administered, because the contractual one is very detailed. We will discuss it in the next class. Let us discuss the administered vertical marketing system. Administered. So administered vertical marketing system. VMS. Okay, so first of all, let us try to understand the difference between corporate VMS and administered VMS. Do you get the meaning of corporate VMS? Clear? Okay. Administered VMS. So administered VMS means that there is one company which is very much powerful and influential. So among these companies, the marketing channel members, leave out customers, okay? Among these companies, the producers, the wholesalers or retailers, among these companies, there is one company which is very powerful which is very influential. Why? Because of its market position. It has a very strong market position. It has a strong market position. It has a high market share. It is very influential. Okay? And because it is very influential, it can control the whole marketing channel. It has power to control. It has power to administer. Okay? So like Walmart. Walmart is a very powerful member of marketing channel. It has administered power to control the marketing channel. Unilever, Procter & Gamble, these big companies, okay, Procter & Gamble, these companies, they all have this power and influence because of their market position, that they can control the whole marketing channel and they can get their own terms and conditions. Okay, we will begin our discussion from here in the next class. You can enjoy the night. Okay?